Okay, so welcome everyone to Our Mind on Music. This is episode 23 of our first season. I'm here again without Leon, who I hope will be back soon. Leon is on hiatus for a short time, but he will be back with us as soon as possible. Today, I'm interviewing a singer, songwriter, musician based in Los Angeles, California, in the United States. His name is Gary Darnell Wortham. Gary is currently in a band called Emperor to None, which features his singing, guitar playing, songwriting, etc. And we're speaking to Gary today based on the arc that we've been doing for several episodes now, which is about where do the songs that we write come from? What are our inspirations? What do we do with those ideas once they come? Our last episode was with Kirby Ferguson, who created many things, including Everything is a Remix, This Is Not a Conspiracy Theory, and his most recent was Artificial Creativity, in which he explains the idea of artificial intelligence and how that's being used in the arts. So we spoke about that, about visual art and also about music. And part of what Gary is going to be speaking with us about today is that he's going to speak about his inspirations, his current work, and also where he thinks it's going to go in the future in terms of he himself as a songwriter and musician, performer, but also the influences that artificial intelligence, he refers to artificial general intelligence, AGI, and where that might take us as well. So let's go to Gary Darnell Wortham, who's speaking to us from Los Angeles, California. Hello, Gary.
Hello, Jeremy. Hello, Leon. Our Mind on Music. Hello, China. Coming to you from Los Angeles, California.
Hello, Gary. So Gary, let's start off with a little introduction of who you are, where you're from, and sort of how did you get into this whole thing with music?
I am a Wisconsin native, but I recently moved about a year and a quarter ago to Los Angeles, which in this part of the world is kind of the entertainment capital, and in some ways the entertainment capital of the world in a lot of ways. So I am, like you mentioned, a Wisconsin native. I am a singer-songwriter type, eclectic in my music style, everything rock, funk, soul, jazz, blues, kind of all mixed together. A little bit of classical influences that comes from some of the prog rock bands that I like. I do like prog rock, and in its various forms.
Cool. So let's get into it. Let's get into the idea. I'm thinking of this in chronological terms, like, you're a young kid growing up in Wisconsin. You're listening to music, maybe that aunts, uncles, cousins, etc. are bringing to your awareness. What's some of the music that you feel has influenced you, has stayed with you, and influences what you write and how you perform, even?
Probably my three favorite progressive rock bands for the Our Mind on Music fans. My three absolute favorite would be Parliament, Funkadelic. I guess that counts as two because it's really two bands, but it's all George Clinton. So, and then it would be Rush, Yes, Parliament. You kind of mix those together, but as an individual, probably my biggest influence is Prince, because in a lot of ways he brought a lot of that together and then added a lot of pop to it, and some techno even to it to some degree, and it's just really just this cool mashup of all these musical styles, but then his own style. There should be a musical genre called Prince. Maybe we can start something here, you guys.
Anyone listening might already know I am a huge Prince fan. I love the fact of all of the influences that he brings to his music. Sly and the Family Stone, just as much as a lot of the jazz greats. The album News, North, East, West, South, is a fantastic example. I mean, he brings in jazz influences that I think he picked up a lot also from his father in the early days. News is a great example, but then you listen to Purple Rain, of course, which is the classic that everybody knows Prince for. But it is a river that is so deep and so wide that it's really hard to characterize Prince's music, and he built that up over years.
My influences are just all over the place. I think I just mentioned probably my four biggest ones are. There's a fifth one that goes with that group. The top five are probably, Prince, Rush, Yes, Parliament, and then Earth, Wind, and Fire. Then if you move forward from there, you get into like the Chili Peppers and 311, Usher and Mary J. Blige.
Let's get it crunk up on that fun up in this dancery. We got y'all open, now you're floating, so you got to dance for me. Don't need no hateration, holleration in this dancery. Let's get it percolating while you're waiting, so just dance for me. Don't need no haters, y'all, we don't need no. We're just trying to love one another. We just want y'all to have a good time. No more drama in your life. Work real hard to make a dime. If you got beat,
Just all of these other artists that are just fantastic, and they just have all this. They have so much to say, as well as great music. So it was like Prince was dance music, and then so much to say. Yes is progressive rock, but they have so much to say. For example, a lot of people don't know that the song "Yours Is No Disgrace" was actually about the Vietnam War.
Yesterday a morning came, a smile upon your face. Caesar's palace, morning glory, see the human race. On a sailing ship to nowhere, leaving any place. If the summer changed to winter, yours is no disgrace.
But John Anderson, leader and lead singer of Yes, has such a writing style that he's not just coming out saying, "Hey, the war's bad, don't go kill people." It's not that basic. It's artistic. It's poetic. It's just basically taking his poems and putting them to music, which is what happened with Rush, where you've got Neil Peart, the great late Neil Peart, drummer of Rush, who was a poet and an avid reader, was also the lyricist for the band, and he basically wrote poems that became these stories, that became these songs, and they're just elaborate and amazing and fantastic. The good news is he found the perfect two people to be in a band with, because Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson brought the absolute, it's like note for note, the perfect music to go along with what he was saying and with his style of writing.
And the men who hold high places must be the ones who start to mold a new reality, closer to the heart, closer to the heart. The blacksmith and the artist, reflected in their art, they forge their creativity closer to the heart. Yes, closer to the heart.
you could not have that style of writing with a very basic rock 4/4, type band. When I start thinking about it, I could go on and on and on. There's just all of these really cool new bands that are actually, influencing people who may be doing it alongside them, or even people who are doing it before them. Occasionally, the two guys who I like hearing talk about new music are Mick Jagger and Paul McCartney, because they will say something about someone who is, young enough to be their grandchild, as if it's like, wow, they're so amazing, and they're, and to be someone who to have someone like that say that would be awesome. So lucky them. But let's. I know you guys. I know Jeremy and Leon want to get into the composing, because that's what this show is about.
Bring us together. And put away the hatred forever.
Definitely, some people are watching in, not only just interested in music in terms of as listeners, but also in terms of they themselves may be songwriters, musicians who are interested in knowing about how other people do it. Can you give us a little insight into your process? So how do you start with a song? What do you, once an idea comes to you, wherever those ideas come from, what do you do with it? How do you move forward in the songwriting process in your case? And this could be different for different situations, but just generally, how would you say that your process flows?
This is just my digital audio workstation that I work off of on my iPad, and on this I'm in my mixing booth. For those who are writers who record their own stuff, I would recommend having a place that you can go where you're just away from everyone else, and you can mix without being at least a little bit self-conscious about, somebody can hear this and they're thinking this and they're thinking that. You're just trying to create the best stuff you can for what you're trying to do. Having a separate space for that is really a good idea. For me, when I get to the point that I have a song where I'm putting parts together like this, if I've gone to a studio and done drum work, or if I've done my own drum work, or if I've done, I think I missed it at the top. I'm a guitar player, primarily. I play bass, drums, guitar, and sing, but guitar is where it all started.
Episode 20 of our show, Our Mind on Music, was called Where Do These Songs Come From? And Leon and I were talking, as musicians, we're not really sure how we come up with these ideas. They just kind of come to us. And I think that's true for many of us. How do you generally come up with ideas? Like if there's a project that you need to work on, how do you approach that starting process with the song?
Compositions are, I'm a thin air composer. I'm not someone who, I can, if someone says, hey, we're going to sit down and write a song. I collaborate with people where sometimes they'll say, hey, I want to write something with you, and we'll do that. But I'm a thin air composer by myself.
Thin air composer. I've never heard that expression before, but it seems perfect. There's a thinker, a speaker, I guess you'd say a philosopher, modern day philosopher, Ekhart Tolle. He talks about original ideas in the strictest sense, not being original at all. They're sort of just in the air. He refers to them like bubbles floating in the air. That may or may not be what you're referring to here with the thin air composer. These ideas just come to us. Once the idea has come to you, what's your next step? How do you organize your workflow? In a pragmatic sort of sense, what's your next step?
So sometimes I'll get an idea, I type them out, and it gives me the great fortune of organizing. I do my own publishing, so my publishing company that I own is called Wortham. So I do one for every year, and in that year, all the songs that I write go into that folder, and then the previous year's folder is inside of that folder, and it's like the little Russian dolls that goes back to when I first started doing it electronically. So after midnight on New Year's Eve, if I'm at a party and somebody says or does something that sparks an idea, and I take out my phone and I quick type in, an idea, that song is now not going to be a 2022 song, it's going to be a 2023 song.
That's very cool. I like how organized that is. That is far more organized than I have ever been in my life in terms of music. Currently, I'm a music teacher. I teach music here in an international school in China, but I've written many, many songs over the years, and I've never thought to organize it quite as clearly as you have. So that's a really cool little professional tip, so thank you for that. I wonder if you could show us an example of how you then use that stored material. You've got all this information stored away. How do you then use it? What's an example of how you would do that?
Oh, geez, I'm gonna pick one at random. I'm gonna do that. So whatever my is on. Something called One Amazing Moment. So what I did with One Amazing Moment is I wrote out these lyrics. I type it all out. The way that I let myself know that I've capped it off is if I put the copyright 2023 Wortham, and then I know, okay, that's a song I consider finished.
Okay, so that makes sense. And so that leads me to the question, how does that normally work for you? Does it normally come with lyrics first or music first? What do you do? Like, let's say if you have lyrics first, how would you, after storing that away in your hard drive, how would you then recall that and then use that? Well, what would you do with those lyrics to turn it into a song?
If I get an idea that's lyrics first, as I'm typing the lyrics, I will start thinking, how am I singing this song? And then sometimes I'll start getting the actual melody itself. So I'm thinking, okay, and it goes like this. And then I end it for, I kind of do the verse chorus thing, but that's not required. The song that I was playing when I came on with you guys is a song called Emperor to None. Its chorus is 100% musical. There's literally no words at it, and it's a very unusual layout. Quick backstory: that song's old. I did that song a few years ago, maybe more than a few years ago. And I played it with a band that I was with at the time, and it kind of we played regionally, and it kind of got known a little bit, and it was always one that I wanted to record. We tried recording it back then, and never came out the way I wanted it to, and now it's coming out the way I want it to come out, so I'm really happy with the direction it's going. It's called Emperor to None. Flash forward from there was a time where I was in a band, we were looking for a name, and one of the band members heard that song and said, "Ooh, that'd make a great name for a band." So we ended up calling the band that as well. But then it just was a song that stuck with me, so I wanted to bring that song back.
Okay. All right. So what does it look like then if it's the other way around? What happens if you get the music first?
If I'm getting the idea of what I want the melody to be, or what I think the guitar part is going to be, the bass part, or the drums, sometimes it's just, I think it's going to be that. I'll grab my phone and use this little voice memo app here. So all these voice memos, they're either ideas or songs. I don't really use the voice memo much for anything else. So this is all music stuff. Giggles. Let's play One More Day and see what that would be. Oh, okay. I remember now. I was working on music for short film, independent film, and I was going to score it. It's a song about the basic theme of the film is suicide. It's a little dark, but also somewhat hopeful. And One More Day was, when you get past that point, make that deal with yourself that you're going to at least be there for one more day. And sometimes one more day is just enough to make you realize that what you thought was so horrible isn't so horrible. And that's pretty much universal, that's the way it turns out if you're willing to wait that one more day. Anyways, so that did not end up, that ukulele piece did not end up in the film. The name of the film is Chuck, so it's in the it's circulating in the festivals these days. It's just released early this year. Starring Heath McGow. You might have seen him in a couple of different things. He was in one of the Star Wars series on Apple TV. But anyways, so there's a reason that has no lyrics, because it wasn't going to have lyrics. It was meant to be a part of the score. That Heath wanted a song that was similar to a very popular song that was very expensive for an independent film to pay for. So the song was You Are My Sunshine. He had written that into the script because it was a song that when he was a child his mother used to sing to him. So for me, the idea of, hey, I'll create a You Are My Sunshine style song for you just for this film was just a challenge I couldn't pass up. And so that became the ukulele song, and I did not use this One More Day piece.
That seems like interesting work to me, working with a filmmaker, especially in that situation where it's the director, actor, etc. So really somebody who has a full vision of the film, of the movie. Do you have other projects like that coming up?
I've actually got 3 other independent films that I'm slated for, so I know I'm going to keep doing them. At some point that idea is going to come in handy.
Yep. I mean, I would love to know how many ideas I've had that were probably really good ideas, and I just lost them because I wasn't organized in that way,
Laying on a slab, waiting for the jet, and tearing your feelings apart.
So my only suggestion when it comes to that sort of thing is when you have an idea, if you have a way of recording it or writing it down, if you write out sheet music, you can just make quick lines and write it out, because ideas are kind of like time for me. They're a one-way street, and you're going through time, you're going through your life, and I feel like I'm passing these ideas up and going, hey, that's a cool idea. And down the road, if I haven't said, hey, that's a cool idea, I'm going to hold on to that. I know that there was that idea. I remember the essence of that idea, but I can't remember the notes. I can't remember the words. I pass them frequently, and I keep them all.
That's cool imagery, actually. It kind of goes back to Ekhart Tolle. The idea that you're just kind of passing through life, and these things are floating around you, these ideas, and then what you said adds to that. The idea that you as you pass them, instead of just letting it go, you hold on to it and you keep it. That's a good idea. I want to hold on to that. That imagery is really cool. So your advice then for songwriters, for people coming up with ideas like this, keep track of your work, right?
Yeah, if you have a way of tracing your steps or keeping track of your ideas along the way, do that. That's a recommendation I have. Never know, but it's not like I think I'm going to suddenly get writer's block. But if I did, I've got a stockpile that'll get me through it.
Okay, so I love how this is going, sort of like walking us through the whole process. So let's say now you've got a melody in your mind. You've got the lyrics, you've found those pieces, however you've stored them, you put them together, and what's next?
So then comes the part where you take a recording here. What I'll do is I'll take an acoustic guitar and I will make myself learn to sing and play it at the same time, which eventually I'll be doing anyway if I'm writing it for myself. So once I've made myself do that, then I can start building around it. I'll hear a bass part, or I'll hear a drum beat, or I'll hear what the piano is going to sound like if there's piano or if there's other keyboards or whatever, and then various, melodies that will be either the lead vocals or the backing vocals if there are any.
So how then do you approach that, the vocals, deciding how to sing the lines, how to arrange them into harmonies, etc.? What are some influences that you think, some music that you think has a huge influence on your singing style?
One of my biggest vocal influences is Gladys Knight.
For the man, too much for the man, he couldn't make it, so he's leaving the life he's come to know. Ooh. He said he's going back to find, ooh, what's left of his world, the world he left behind not so long ago. He's leaving on that midnight train to Georgia. Yeah.
The song Imprudent Nun actually do something in there, and I heard it and I said, that is so Gladys Knight. I just completely did my imitation of Gladys Knight on that song. But, again, her...
But great that you mentioned that, and I'm so happy to be able to play an example of that for folks who might not be familiar with his music. Those people viewing, if you're not familiar with Donny Hathaway's music, please do go have a look. You can Google it, or however you search for music. It's well worth a listen. So Gary, let's go to this question. You've talked about influences and how that's sort of brought you in a way to where you are. Do you feel like over the years, one of the things Leon and I talked about in our Music of Our Youth episodes was, do you feel like your musical tastes have changed over the years? In other words, do you feel like there's music that you loved back then that maybe you love less now?
Has my musical taste changed? No. I'm a nerd. I'll admit that. A little bit of a science and math nerd, but that stuff led me to the more eclectic, complicated stuff that just goes on and on forever, like the Yes and the Rush and the Genesis and the Parliament and all of that sort of stuff. And I can still listen to that and like it just as much.
So how about new music that's out right now? Is there something that you really, really enjoy listening to that you think is maybe influencing you as well?
To me, at this point, Anderson .Paak has become kind of almost like a staple, a classic, like he and Usher and guys like that.
Yeah, I mean, Anderson .Paak with Bruno Mars, that stuff. Usher, I know less of Usher's music, I have to say, but definitely now I'll have to go check it out. Maybe I'll put a little clip right here.
A-Town down. Yeah, okay. Usher. Let's go. Up in the club with my homies, tryna get a little VI, keep it down on the low key. She know how it is. I saw the shorty, she was checking the phone.
So once you've then started writing, I guess the question is, whether you're recording vocals or instrumental parts, is there a certain sort of workflow that you prefer to use? Is there a workflow that you might suggest or recommend for other songwriters out there?
My recommendation, everyone, I think there's a million ways to write, and I don't think any of them are necessarily wrong. If you can get what you want out of it, then there's no wrong way to do it, in my opinion. There's some who will disagree with me because they're teaching people how to write songs. and they have a method, and that method is what works for them. And if that works for you, then that's the right. But if you're having trouble writing, if you feel like you are blocked, then you do find out what other people are doing. You're watching this show. Our Mind on Music is, kind of like a way for people who don't write as prolifically as some, to find a way to pull out that creative energy.
So tell me, would you be someone else if you had a chance to redefine you? Would you change your life to where you never would be blue? I've got to need to believe that where you are now ain't so bad. 'Cause when you get what you ain't got, you want what you just had. Hindsight.
So what's a good way to get started with that then?
The best place to start, in my opinion, is write what you know. Figure out what's around you that's interesting. If it's about your family, your parents, your childhood, your own children, if that's what inspires you to write about it. If you write another song about it, that's okay. If you write 10 songs about it, that's okay. Taylor Swift has written a few songs about ex-boyfriends. If there's another one to be written, she's going to write it. She is. And that's okay. So that's really kind of the deal for me. Is inspiration comes from society, and inspiration comes from my environment, comes from friends and family, it comes from outer space, art, visual art, paintings, drawings, what have you, and people, inspiring people that I just think are cool.
Yeah, so we're talking to you today because you are a working songwriter, singer, musician, performer. What is some music that our viewers, our listeners, could go and find that you have written? Some of the stuff that you have out there right now.
I have an album out called Anomaly, and that's sort of self-describing my oddness of being here in LA right now. It's like I'm going to be, as I see it, an unlikely with what I achieve here. That's my own personal meaning. I didn't pick something that I thought would be cool or flashy or whatever. I picked something that meant something for the whole feel of it. My name is Gary Darnell Wortham. Gary Wortham is the name I've always been known by. Gary Wortham my whole life as a kid. I never used my middle name much, which was kind of an interesting experience because I think Gary Wortham, when people hear it, if they don't know me, they have sort of a mental image, and then I'm not their mental image. Using my middle name, I've noticed a change in that mental image. My middle name is Darnell.
So you bring up something here that obviously has been a thing in the music industry for a very long time. Marketing, the marketing departments of these record companies are looking for how do they match the image of the artist with the music that's being played. Michael Stipe of REM, he once said, somebody asked him, how would you label your songs, or how would you label your music? And he said, labels are for food. It just seems crazy to me that this is still something that people are trying to, put music and artists into little boxes. Lenny Kravitz, when he released Let Love Rule back in the early 90s, I remember seeing an interview with him on Much Music in Canada where he talked about that. He really struggled to get a record deal because his look, with the dreadlocks that he had at the time, etc., didn't match what the record company's marketing department thought he should look like playing a song like Let Love Rule. Malcolm Gladwell is a Canadian author. He wrote, I think it was his second book, which was called Blink. In the book Blink, one of the chapters is dedicated to a musician called Kenna. They call it the Kenna dilemma because Kenna is in this same sort of situation, very eclectic sound. Some places he's described as a new wave musician. I saw one that said, one description that said, imagine Duran Duran and Depeche Mode produced by Dr. Dre. So it doesn't fit easily into these marketing little boxes, and it seems to me like that's what you're describing here. And, it was talked about with Elvis and Chuck Berry back in the 1950s, Elvis was playing rock and roll music that people said a white guy shouldn't be playing, quote unquote. Okay, and Chuck Berry, his own band members were shocked at the fact that he basically wanted to play country music sped up, right? My point is that since the 1950s and before, who knows how long, people have had preconceived notions of what an artist should look like when they create a certain type of music. You said earlier, write what you know. I think that is hugely important. That is one of the things that separates us from AI, artificial creativity. Kirby Ferguson said that that's one of the big differences, is that we create art. We are aware of that art. We can go back and, think back, reflect on what we've created to then make new art. We can only do that if we're being honest to ourselves about what we feel and we want to create. Keep plugging away at it. I really like the sounds that I heard from the examples that you sent through to us that I've included in this episode. Okay, stepping down from my soapbox now. So Gary Darnell Wortham, can you where can we find your music? What's the best way that we can keep up to date on what you're creating and where your music is and your career is moving forward?
It's Gary Darnell Wortham Anomaly. It's on all of the streaming services. That music on that is really, it's an album that I started during COVID, during lockdown. I started recording it at home with, this gear here, all that I'm using still now, out in California. I was recording it back in Wisconsin. Finished it here, got it mastered here and all that sort of stuff, and put it out.
So your Anomaly, would you say that there's a thread that ties together the songs in the album?
It is a concept album, and there is a thread of things that connect each song to each song, and the order of the songs is very purposeful, very intentional. And so just listen to it, enjoy it, hopefully. And I'm on Instagram. I'm Gworth on Instagram. Gworthish, GWRTHISH. On Twitter, it's Gary Darnell Wortham. It's a new one, so it's very lightly traveled. The other thing is I do have a Gary Wortham Musical Performer is my Facebook page for music. The Emperor to None videos are on YouTube. Besides being a singer-songwriter, that's one of the catch-22s of being independent, is that you have creative control and you have directional control and you get to decide how things go. The downside is you don't have a crew doing all that stuff. You have helpers here and there, but you're pretty much your own secretary, your own IT person and social media promotional person. So you have to fit that in with the practicing, playing, learning new songs, writing new songs, and recording, publishing, and putting all that stuff out. My overall message at the end is, write from your heart. Let's say you're a sensitive, thoughtful male, but you're a rapper, but you feel like you gotta write disparaging, songs about female anatomy and whatever, but you're not feeling it. And it's not gonna work for you, or it might, and then you're gonna feel bad about it because you're gonna be saying all this stuff that is contrary to how you feel. Rap about why she's a wonderful person and you love her.
In our last episode 22, with Kirby Ferguson, who has just put out a documentary called Artificial Creativity, and one of the things that he says very clearly that's connected to his series, This Is Not a Conspiracy Theory, is that AI, as it stands right now, is a tool. It's a piece of machinery that we can use. It's not in our foreseeable future for AI to take over the world and turn into the Terminator and all of those sorts of things, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on AI as a working songwriter, musician? what do you think this means for us?
So there's AI and there's AGI. AI, artificial intelligence. AGI is artificial general intelligence, and the general part is the tricky part, because when it's a general intelligence, then it is really the true achievement of its own enlightenment of itself. It's doing its own general thinking. So when we were all, oh no, AI is going to take over, not till AGI. But as far as their creating virtual music, why not? Why not? Especially if they become self-aware, then the fact that they want to be creative probably will save our butts, because a creative being is much less likely to be a destructive being, in my opinion. Just a lot of, but there's a lot of good stuff out there, and I bet your fans have a lot of good stuff that watch your show, and I'm looking forward to seeing more episodes of Our Mind on Music and hearing from people, and getting some feedback from this stuff.
Absolutely, Gary. And Leon and I as well, this to the viewers and listeners out there, we would love to have your feedback on this episode, any of the comments that we've made during the episode, and previous episodes as well. Go on to YouTube or whatever your favorite podcasting platform is. Have a look, have a listen, let us know. And Gary, we will definitely give you any of the feedback that we receive on the episode to let you know what people said. Thank you very much for joining today and speaking with me about your career, your process, and the state of the music industry as it stands right now.
Jeremy and Leon, thank you guys for having me on the show. I appreciate it very much. I was just going to say, at some point when I'm here in LA, I've been talking to some musicians, trying to put together a touring band, trying to put together the funding for it, trying to put together all this stuff to get out and see the world and play music all over the place. And when I meet people who are cool as you guys, Jeremy and Leon, I kind of make a point of saying, sort of a promise, and that I hope to be able to keep when I get everything put together, to come to Shenzhen, China, play a show there at some point. Obviously traveling the world is an expensive endeavor, and when you're independent, you're foot in the bill. But if you can get all the things arranged in the proper order, you know how it goes, then you can pull it. So my intentional promise is to someday play there for you guys, for your home audience in China.
Wow, that's very interesting. I mean, a touring band, having done a little bit of that myself, I know the amount of work and commitment it is for all of the members. I tip my hat to you. That would be fantastic. It would be awesome to actually meet you in person, to hear your band playing. I wish Leon was here to comment on that, because that's how he ended up in China, is that he was in a band, he was working with some musicians, and he found an opportunity 20-something years ago to come to China to play in a venue, and realized the opportunity that was there for him. Long story short, here we are 20-something years later, and he's still here playing. So please do keep us up to date, and any new news that you have, we would be happy to share with our viewers and listeners as well moving forward. Thanks again, Gary.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. I love music, and I love people who promote music, so thank you so much.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.